Hey everybody, welcome back to the Strategy Game Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey, and today we are talking about overcoming fear. So today we're talking about fear, and you might not be particularly struck by fear right now, or you might have really been struggling with it. Over the past year, we've had a lot of circumstances that may have prompted fear. And I think that it sneaks up on us. It can be tricky sometimes, but the more we learn to call it out, I think the more that we're able to combat it and basically think of it like taking away the monster that's under the bed, right? When you're a kid or you're afraid of the dark, right? But once we uncover it, once we call it out and bring it into the light, it's not so scary anymore. And that can happen by saying it out loud. That can happen through journaling, and that can happen through talking with trusted mentors, family, friends, accountability partners, mastermind groups, right? That's why we lead those masterminds. A lot of it, is conquering things like that, as well as doing the strategy work. So fear is a liar. That's what we believe. And we talk about identifying the things that break fear and doing them in the strategy masterclass. And this is the second episode that's part of the productivity map. And you can go to the strategy masterclass. We'll provide a link in the show notes to go through this course. It's pretty short. It's only 4 modules, but it's very powerful. And it comes with guides that will help you as you journal through these prompts. So fear will try to take you down, right? Every time, but you have to be determined not to let it. Fear paralyzes, and it can create a fog over you that can bring confusion. That's why we want to work through fear, because none of us want a fog or confusion over us. And when we allow these things in, we also allow space to not operate or walk in our purpose. And that has consequences, right? So we don't want it to let us sit back and wait for other things to enter in, like distraction, right? So fear can be a gateway to letting distraction or other things in. And that's why this work is important, because when we do the foundational work of clearing out fear and really getting clear on what the framework is to clear out fear on a regular basis, then we can make sure and take an account and, that we're not allowing other distractions and other things in, right? And don't confuse this with rest. Like, it's okay sometimes. Like, I'm thinking of myself this past year and how I've felt paralyzed in a way. I felt a fog, but it wasn't because of fear for me at this point. I've experienced the being paralyzed and feeling a fog of fear at other points in my life. But this past year, it was different. It was almost like there was this air just sitting over me that I knew it was not time to move. It was time to rest. It was time to reflect. And for me, it was time to get solid in my identity and who I am. And how I want to walk and move forward. So I think there can be intentional pauses, and it's also important to differentiate that for yourself and ask yourself why, right? So is this something that is intentional and it's meant for me to pause and rest, and there's some other things that I need to see or clear out or just rest? Or is it time that I need to recognize fear and call it into account so that I can clear it out of the way? So if this is you, don't let fear continue to paralyze you. Don't let fear to continue to create a fog over you that creates confusion. So here are some things that you can do to move through, to unmask the fear, to call it out for what it is, and to really continue to operate in your purpose and the things that you were created to do. So when I first launched Storywork, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, I went through a period where I did feel afraid. And at this point, I had lots of experience building multiple startups and leading a family office and all kinds of different work experiences. Yet I still felt afraid because this was new territory for me. And I didn't know yet where I was going, or what others thought, right? Or if I was valuable enough. Those things I went through, and through the process of really stepping into my identity as a person and as a company and this brand, I don't feel that same way, right? So I think that we'll all have moments of being afraid or unsure, but we need to learn how to continuously push through them so that we can overcome it. So now I'm going to give you 3 things that for me help break the fear. So the first is perspective. So would you zoom out to look at the greater vision of the message that you're trying to deliver, or the larger goal of what you want to accomplish? Being afraid can fade into the background, because when the focus is off of you and it's all about others, that really breaks fear. So when you remember why you're doing what you're doing, and the fact that there are others that need what you do out there, I think when we bring that fresh perspective in, the fear can go away. The second is vulnerability. So when you go afraid and you share your thoughts, feelings, and insights with others, you often meet people that have the same thoughts. And practicing vulnerability on the regular makes moving afraid easier and easier each time you do it. So it's like a muscle, right? You need to work it out in order for it to strengthen. So vulnerability, perspective, these need to be strengthened and practiced on the regular. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we get into patterns or times when we feel, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but tired, right? Because there are things that make us tired in life. But I think that if we learn how we recharge and we make sure that we're giving ourselves the recharge that we need, then we can continue to practice being intentional about being vulnerable and about bringing in that perspective. So for me, the perspective I've been taking actually this past week or so, at times, moments, to just come back to my vision and to write it out in my journal. And it's just been so good to actually just read through it again. And really the point of story work for me, the vision is just to share this ecosystem of thought leaders that I have, and really elevate leaders and entrepreneurs and nonprofits to just transform mindsets, to give them the tools that they need, the blueprint that they need to build and scale, and do the work that matters. So when I remember that, when I remember the vision and why I'm doing what I'm doing, then all of the to-dos or all of the overwhelm or the fear really goes away, because I know that that is part of my purpose, and I know that that is what I've set out to do. So vulnerability, really practice it, like put it on your calendar. I mean, I'm serious. Like if you want to practice it, make sure you use some of those habit tricks we talked about in the habit episodes, where you drop a paperclip into a mason jar every time you do it, right? Or every time you have your perspective, like quiet time or reflection time in the morning for me is the greatest way to do that for myself. And again, in the evening, usually just a few minutes, I take and just zoom out on things. So the third thing that breaks fear, that helps me break fear, is awareness. So on every level, and I know we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but on every level, self-awareness unmasks fear. So if you call things out, if you write them down, if you speak them out loud, if you tell a friend, it can't weigh you down anymore. Think about the last time that you were afraid to say something and it finally came out in some way. Did you feel just a weight lifted because you knew that you weren't alone in it anymore, or it wasn't hiding, it wasn't undercover? The more you bring out, the better it's going to be. And this is all hard for us. I mean, I've had things that, you don't want to say it. You feel shame, right? Or you feel guilt around something, or it's a hard decision. It's hard, something you have to do, right? You can do hard things. And I go back to a lot of Brene Brown's writings where she just really talks about the power It's not good. The power of shame, though, and how it can create a hold over us. So we want to make sure that we have that self-awareness, and we're gauging where we are with things, and breaking that fear and that shame cycle, right? And guilt, so that it doesn't weigh us down anymore. And so the more we're expressing it, the more freedom we're going to create for ourselves. So awareness can help break fear. So I'm going to recap those three things, and then I'm going to give you another tool that you can use to help uncover if you're having trouble finding the root of where your fear comes from. Because it's really important to identify the root. Sometimes we can think it's something, but it's on the surface level that we're afraid of. And so sometimes we need to peel back the layers, like you're peeling back the layers of an onion, to be able to get to the core of what it really is. What issue is it? What woundedness or trigger is it for you? Or pattern in a relationship that is leading to this fear, right? Or insufficiency, right? It could be anything, or anger, right? All of these things, these emotions can come up when we haven't been able to really identify the core of what the issue is. So the three things that help me break fear are perspective, vulnerability, and awareness. And so now I'm going to move into the tool that you can use, and it's called the 5 Whys. And what's great about this is we have a PDF that I will attach in the show notes. It's called Fear.is.a.liar, and it walks you through the process of pinpointing your fears, action steps around them, and using the tools of the 5 Whys to uncover really what the core of the issue is. This is so powerful. And even if you just set a timer for like 15 or 20 minutes, what you'll uncover in that short period of time will be monumental. Honestly, I've done this for a long time now, and it's something that I always go back to because it's so practical. And I actually got this method from Ash Mariah from LeanStack. You can check it out. He's leanstack.com. And he really talks about this in a business model sense, but it can really be applied to anything. So I use the 5 Whys and even uncovering emotional issues. So what you're going to do when you go through this PDF is just really write down the first things that come to mind, no matter how ridiculous they feel. So don't try to do this in your head, because nothing replaces this practice of writing it out on paper. When you write it down, you see it in a different light. It allows reality to come into the issue, and it creates this mindset shift. It calls the fear out for what it is very tangibly. And then you can begin to realize that it's not relevant, or it is, and there are action steps that you can take to conquer it, right? So it lifts the fog or the confusion. And you can use this anytime. It's a tool that you can use anytime. It's very simple and something you can always keep in your back pocket to pull out when you're starting to feel that fear. So what you can do here is really think through just the top 3 to 5 ways that maybe you're experiencing the fear, right? And answer a why for each one of them. So think root, where does it stem from, right? So you want to think through, okay, I'm afraid of X, Y, and Z. Why? Okay, unpeel a layer of the onion. Okay, why, right? And then keep asking why, and look back in your past. Think about any spirit crushing moments. Think about any old wounds. Think about any unhealthy patterns that you have. Think about triggers that you have. Being aware of all of those things will help you get to the core faster. And so then what you can do is you can actually pinpoint action steps around the fear. So this is what I'm going to do to combat the fear every time I feel this, or every time I need a shift, I need to do something different. So the 5 Whys, I'm going to link to the PDF in the show notes. I'm also going to attach the link to the productivity map. If you want to move through this course in its 4 modules, it'll probably take you maybe an hour or 2 if you go through the whole thing with PDF guides, and it's well worth it. And tune in, because next we're going to tackle insufficiency in our 3rd episode in this series. Thanks for tuning in.